We are live and recording, and it is
I will go ahead and call us to order then.
Mr. Adler,
Here.
Ms. Carney,
Here.
Mr. Swain,
Here.
Mr. Jaspis,
Here.
Mr. Dryer.
First thing on our agenda, approval of minutes from our September 15th regular meeting. Did anyone have any notes or call outs in regard to those minutes?
I had a comment. One of the ones was related to TIF dollars being used for the path.
Mhm.
There was a comment that it was Mr. McCabe added that there's an internal system of sidewalks and TIF dollars may or may not be used to connect those sidewalks to the outer path. And in my recollection, we talked about how that really shouldn't be feasible for the developer to use tax-related money off of that development for his own sidewalks within his development. So I just thought that I could hopefully add that
In the minute.
in the minutes. Yeah.
Yep. And that's paragraph 4.
I didn't see anything else. I'd motion to approve as submitted with the modification Mr. Swank mentioned.
Second.
Mr. Adler,
Yes.
Mr. Swain,
Yes.
Mr. Jaspis,
Yes.
Mayor Carney.
Yes.
Perfect. Next up, we have approval of 2022 meeting schedule. Can't believe we're already at 2022. I did not personally have any call outs here. I think this is pretty in line with how we've done the last couple of years as far as meeting dates, filing deadlines, distribution, and council. Did anyone else have any comments, concerns?
No.
Okay. I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the 2022 meeting schedule.
Second.
Mr. Adler,
Yes.
Mr. Swain,
Yes.
Mr. Jaspis,
Yes.
Mayor Carney.
Yes.
Next up, communication zoning, Ms. Brill.
So our zoning code rewrite is coming along pretty nicely. Our steering committee met to review part 1 of the zoning code draft here in November. We're working through those comments now with our consultant and making those revisions. The plan is to have the board convene again at the beginning of December to review that second part. We'll take comments from there, and then the next phase is to send it out for public comments into the first draft to come to Planning Commission for review here. Also, of note, we had an application come through for rezoning of roughly 79 acres south of Madison Meadows for Madison Meadows 2. This is to follow up on that recently filed application that was withdrawn due to some changes that were made. This will be on the agenda in December for a public hearing, and that's all I have.
And that, did you say that's for the PUD for that? Or?
It will, yes,
You said 79 acres to the south.
roughly, it's like
Okay.
79.78, something like that.
You have to be that precise. All right, BZA, Mr. Jaskowitz.
We had a meeting last night. There were 3 applications for 2 separate properties. One was a property located at the corner of Alcott and 42. A business wants to come in there and they need a conditional use in order to move forward. And then the second application, or the second and third application for the same property was for an accessory use building on a property on West 2nd. And they needed a conditional use as well as a variance for what they were doing. And these are really similar to the other ones that have gone through BZA in the last couple of years. Both of those applications were tabled to next Tuesday, which is consistent with what BZA typically does. So decisions will be rendered.
What was
on
the
Tuesday.
conditional use on Alcott and 42?
So the business is not a permitted use
Yep.
in that area, so it is a conditional use.
What was the business though?
The business is basically a home repair, so they do flood, fire, and like damage mitigation
Okay.
at a home. All their businesses off-site obviously on people's property, so I mean they don't do any real business on site other than loading their tools and their trucks and so forth. So that was the conditional use. So it's a permitted conditional use, it's just not a already approved use for that area.
And West Second was a residential property.
An accessory unit, so they needed an area variance for the coverage. They wanted to go, I think it was from 25% to 50%. And then there were, the other two variances were, there was a setback variance to go on the rear of the property from 8 feet to 5 feet. And then, what was the third? Oh, the height. There was a height restriction. So the height restriction, you're required to stay within what the property already has on it. It's a ranch property. This is a 2-story accessory structure. So there's a requirement to stay within a certain height of that they wanted a variance for, because it's going to be in excess of that. And then obviously the conditional use was for what it's actually being used for, the house, the accessory dwelling.
Perfect, thank you.
Sure thing.
Mayor Carney.
Yes, so since we last met in September, just been working to continue to keep supporting businesses through increasing communication and outreach to them, connecting needs as we get new building owners in the uptown, and trying to welcome some of the potential businesses that could be coming into the uptown, and promoting our town and all that we have to offer. Something that has come about in the month of October through different discussions with community leaders, in knowing the need that we have a need for a daycare and a permanent home for daily needs. We are looking at starting conversations about a community center, and what does that look like? What purpose will it serve? What are we needing in Plain City? And so a community member is creating a bus tour over to Troy to look at their community center and how it is set up. And so many of the community, school board members and various leaders in the community, are going to be participating in that bus tour to see how we can create that here in our town, because we know that there are several needs that need to be met, and if we can start meeting the needs of the residents a little bit more thorough, that will continue to have a great functioning town. So that is an exciting thing that's coming about. And so any thoughts on community center and what that means to planning and zoning, we are definitely interested in your input. And we are coming up with upon Christmas under the clock, and the village is splitting that into 2 different events this year a little bit on the same day. We know that we have our Route 42 business corridor and then the uptown, and there's always been kind of a disconnect of how can we better service and promote the businesses along 42. So we're doing a holiday hop between 9 to noon on December 4th, and then come together in the evening for Christmas under the clock for the uptown. So trying to kind of do something different this year and better highlight 42, so that we don't leave them out, but we kind of start promoting them and letting everybody know what is out here as well. That's basically, and then Mr. Cowhall, he had turned in his letter of resignation to us in October, and council at the October 25th meeting appointed an acting administrator for the time being, while we do a search for a new administrator. So Haley Lupton, our management analyst, she will be she is the acting administrator, and so she is picking up where Mr. Cowhall left off, and along with other staff members like Ms. Brill and Ms. Sonnet and Chief McKee, were keeping everything moving. And then the uptown parking lot is now open, and then hopefully the sidewalk construction along Main Street will be wrapping up here. They're pouring the curb today, so I know they have some infill in there and then adding the bricks. So it's changes good changes are happening. That's all I have.
Did you want to discuss?
Oh, yes, thank you. We had a resident bring a letter to council. He didn't get a chance to sign in and speak, but he dropped this off, and I wanted to bring it to P&Z to get your input and thoughts, and especially with the zoning code rewrite that is happening. If we go forth with changes, like I think this is a great opportunity now. And I had spoke with Mr. Bennett before he brought this forward. As you know, many of the developments, they either will seed or sod, and it seems that, you know, we have continuing issues to keep for the grass to take and establish. I know the tree in front of my house, we replaced it 2 or 3 times, then we finally said, you know what, we're not gonna replace it anymore, because the soil was poor soil for the growing conditions. So when he brought this forward, I thought this would be a great topic of discussion to add this evening and get everybody's thoughts. Especially as we're looking at helping with water quality and our stormwater.
Yeah.
Anybody have any thoughts on it?
I can start. I mean, I think it's a great idea. I mean, typically, I've heard that when people build in the division, that in the contracts, a lot of times that there's a stipulation that the developers are supposed to put the soil down, but oftentimes that just kind of gets left out. So I think putting it in the zoning code is probably a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would agree, right? Anything we can do to promote
Absolutely.
the growth of the greenery in our communities, I think is important.
Yeah.
Be interesting to do some research just to validate the claims here on reducing water usage as well. If that's, you know, valid, I think that's key as well. So I think it's a good point for discussion. I think with us rewriting our code, it's probably something that we should consider and look if there's other things that we've not considered along those same lines that are beneficial to our community.
Well, I think when you talk about the water usage, I can definitely see every summer it seems like we are just putting out the sprinkler all the time because of the poor establishment. So, Mr. Jaskowitz, Lieutenant, what would you?
Don't have anything. I understand it. I guess I'd be curious to see what other, you know, communities to do. It's obviously an ask to the developers. And I guess I'd like to see that it was, you know, not unheard of. I mean, this is in Minnesota, but you know, the information that he's getting for the, you know, the wording for the code itself. So I'd just be interested to see what other communities do. But it seems like a reasonable and a good idea. You're taking the soil off anyways, and why not add it back to where it came from and provide better growing conditions and so forth.
Perfect.
So do we want to put that to Ms. Brill? Would you put this on the for the zoning code rewrite for the landscaping?
Sure, I think the best spot is probably gonna be in subdivision regulations. So we can look once we get to that portion of the code into seeing where this fits in.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Good now.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Next up, we have public comment. Did anyone submit for public comment tonight? Anyone here for public comment tonight? All right, we will move along here. Nothing on the agenda for old business. Under new business, we do have a couple applications for final plat here, so we'll work through each of those one at a time and just handle the comments on each of those within the specific request. So first up, we have application PZ 21-21, final plat Madison Meadows, section 2A. The comment that we do have here from Ms. Brill is a recommendation of approval with a couple comments here regarding a letter from our engineer around the easements on a number of the different lots.
And I wanted to provide an update on this. So we spoke to their engineers this week and we received an updated comment letter. All of the comments have been addressed and reflected in new submittals of the plat. Just a couple adjustments in easements and just some realignment of things. It didn't change anything on the plats other than labelings. But all of those comments have been taken care of this time.
Okay, and that's on each of the 4 different applications then?
That is correct.
Okay. I did not have any additional call-outs or comments regarding the plating versus what we had previously looked at as well. Looking to you guys if there's anything else.
I'll be honest, I'm seeing it for the first time, so
Okay.
I feel like it's pretty much down the process for me to make major comments, but at this point, I think it is what it is, so I don't know that I have any comments.
I don't have any comments.
Me either. It's consistent with what we've seen so far, and it's consistent with what they've done, and if they've already met the conditions that Ms. Brill has discussed with them, I'm not sure what there is to discuss.
Okay. I will go ahead and make a motion then for approval.
Second.
Mr. Adler,
Yes.
Mr. Swain,
Abstain.
Mr. Jocelyn,
Yes.
Mayor Carney.
Yes.
Next up here, PZ 21-22, final plat Madison Meadows, section 2B. I would have the same comments here. I think we've already addressed the concerns from the engineer. Any other concerns or comments regarding this plat?
None, no. Since we've already seen it previously.
Yep. I will make a motion to approve PZ 21-22.
Second? Oh.
Mr. Adler,
Yes.
Mr. Swain,
Abstain.
Mr. Jocelyn,
Yes.
Mayor Carney.
Yes.
Next up, PZ 21-23, final plat Madison Meadows, section 3A. Same comments from me here.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Mr. Adler,
Yes.
Mr. Swain,
Abstain.
Mr. Jocelyn,
Yes.
Mayor Carney.
Yes.
And finally, on the new business, PZ 21-24, final plat Madison Meadows, section 3B. Again, the same comments.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Mr. Adler,
Yes.
Mr. Swain,
Abstain.
Mr. Jocelyn,
Yes.
Mayor Carney.
Yes.
And finally, for tonight, discussion regarding rezoning of 15 acres from B2 to planned industrial development.
So we have, Mr. Rezoning here tonight and a few others, I'm sorry, I don't know your names, but they wanted to speak on this item. It's to rezone 15 acres, kind of on the northeast corner of US 42 in North Chillicothe. I have some presentations lined up from them, but if they wanted to kind of take it away.
So we're here representing Ohio Ready Mix. They want to develop that parcel into a state-of-the-art concrete production facility, concrete plant. And so we met with zoning and decided the best way to handle this was probably to move it into a planned industrial development so that it would be zoned specifically for this use, and that and you wouldn't end up having in your zoning code where people could put these types of things elsewhere in the village. So this is probably at the most northern edge of town, and right on the edge of where Jerome Township starts. And that's Rickard Road.
Quick for clarification, then this here is the curve on.
Yeah, that's Rickard, yeah.
Right towards 42, so 42 this way.
Yeah, there's those storage units on that side.
I'm confused. Is there a map or an aerial?
Yeah, 42's on the, would be on the bottom
On the
where.
bottom of it.
Yeah,
So this is actually turned
Yeah, this is,
There's an arrow there on the top right that shows north, so
There you go.
yeah, that's probably a little bit more accurate. Yes.
now 42 is on the left side, Rickard's on the top side.
Give me 1 second, I'll pull that up.
Yeah, that might be easier.
I'm sorry.
I'm with you, because flipping that just made it worse.
So we're here today to discuss a little bit about this project and maybe get your input on maybe some of the things that you'd like to see us incorporate into the text for this planned industrial unit development. There's a couple key points to what Ohio Ready Mix wants to do that I think brings some value. They're very concerned about the environment. And so some of the key points on this development are that, one, all the concrete trucks will be only operating on concrete paved surfaces. We have incorporated it's going to be a no-build green space. That hatched mark up at the top of the drawing is part of the property and goes to the Darby, and we're going to make that a no-build zone. We want to have heavy landscaping around the edges, and currently we've developed a 50-foot wide landscape area in there. I'm going to walk up here so you can. We have a few pictures. Another key point of this site development is what you see up here is a settling basin. It's a series of settling basins, and I have a picture of that. So typically most concrete facilities, trucks come, they just wash the concrete out on the ground, and it causes all sorts of runoff problems. This is actually a bunch of concrete vaults and settling basins. So the trucks will come in, wash out, all their washout will go into there, and eventually settle into the last bay where it'll be clean water, and all the grit and silt and gravel and concrete will be in the other bays, and they'll clean that out periodically. So the trucks will come around here, and then they would get a new load, and then one of the other key components of this is right there. It's called a wash and go. So every truck will go, and I have a picture of that we can show. Every truck will get thoroughly washed. Maybe we could pull those up right now. So here's the site, highlighted in yellow. This is what their typical plant looks like, and so you see this building in the back. They put all their trucks in garages, so there's no equipment parked outside when they're closed, and they do that for maintenance. So I'll show you where that is on the drawing. There should be a couple.
Looked like there were a couple more pages. Taylor, if you go a couple to the left there. One more. Other left. I think there's 3 there.
Yeah. So here's the wash and go. As you can see, it's a lot of high pressure water. The trucks get their load. They go through this wash and go. They completely get cleaned off. You have the stuff from the truck goes into a settling pond, not into the regular stormwater system, and we make sure that the site stays dust free and we don't track any dirt or debris onto the road. They have these at their other plants too. And then the last picture may not be the best picture, but I could. This is what actually the settling ponds look like. So the trucks go dump out in that first bay there, and you can see there's water in here. By the time the water gets to there, it's free of silt and concrete particles and ready to be put into the storm sewer system. Ohio Ready Mix is a local county area company. It's been in business for a long time. It's family run, 3rd generation. One of the great things I think about Ohio Ready Mix, because being a longtime football coach and in education. They're the only ready-mix company in Ohio that can teach CDL truck driving. So they'll be actually bringing people in and trying to give them a skill and be able to teach them, and they can go elsewhere. So that'll be part of this site. And they should have about, when they open, there should be about 25 employees working out of this location. So that's so this is the concept. We're going to really hone it in and get it a really nice design. But again, we would like to have your input today to see what maybe a few things you might want to see incorporated in this project. They're excited about coming to the area, especially with all the construction that's happening in this area. I do think that having a company like this allows commercial endeavors to want to come to the area, because when they're ready to come, they need things that are shovel ready. Obviously, concrete's a basic construction product that's involved in every project, and if you have somebody here that can do that, that's a good deal. So I don't know if Craig is our attorney. Do you have anything you might want to add? Or
Yeah, I guess just real quick on as far as the zoning goes, what we're proposing to rezone is the planned industrial district, and just that adds a little flexibility as far as how we can describe it. This is kind of a unique use, so we can really lay out what exactly they plan on doing on the facility. Also, as far as setbacks go, kind of another unique thing is you've got one structure that's tall, but it's not like it's a huge building or anything like that. So we can work with the language to provide the height that they need, but limit it to a very small portion of the property that's set back from streets and adjacent properties. So with the PID, we'll come back with a full text that goes over uses and development standards. That's site specific, and I think as far as schedule goes, we'll have that text by definitely by the end of the year, probably come before you in January. So this is preliminary, but we wanted to introduce it and kind of get the ball rolling as far as any comments or anything like that. So I think that's it for now.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys coming before us, sharing that. I would say, for me personally, I don't have a whole lot of experience with, ready mix, right, or with the process that's involved, right, in the concrete there. So I would like to see more around the environmental impacts. I know you're presenting it as a way that's, low impact to the environment, but that lot is very close to the Darby, right? And any runoff that you do have is going to make it to the Darby. So I would like to understand a little bit more about that, because I would imagine it's impossible to be dust free, right, on a site where you're mixing concrete. But I think that's just, off the top of my head, the first thing that comes to mind. I would say, based on what we did with a comprehensive plan, I think it's a fit to have something more geared towards industrial in that area, if I remember that correctly. So not necessarily a concern or call out there, but just with this specific product, I'd like to understand it a little better.
Sure.
So with the comprehensive plan, it calls for employment center in that area. So, you're basically asking to rezone from whatever it's currently zoned into a PID so that it is, so it can go there. Correct? It's not zoned for that. It's not currently a conditional use that they could do a variance or a conditional use through BZA. They have to go through a full rezoning because it totally doesn't fit with what the zoning is.
Correct. It's currently zone B2, which is a commercial district. What they're proposing is industrial in nature. Our code doesn't call for that to be innovation and employment, which lends itself to light industrial. But under the current regulations, they would have to go through a rezoning in order to establish this business on that property.
And when you say light industrial, does what they're proposing fit in with light industrial?
In my opinion, it would not be something that would be a permitted use in the district.
Yeah, and at every development that's proposed, every time, people want to focus on the comprehensive plan and trying to steer, use it as the steering, what steers us. And we do, but I think that, this kind of is directly in conflict. I mean, a lot of times you can draw some parallels between things that are close, to say, we're kind of following, we're getting as close as we can to following the comprehensive plan, and this doesn't seem to me to be
And I would
close to that.
see that as employment, right? It's an employment center, being a
Well,
business there.
Well, but if you listen, I mean, any business brings employment, right? So, but is it the type of employment that is envisioned for that area? And what Taylor kind of just described, it didn't sound like, this brings that type of employment. I mean, they're saying obviously 25 drivers, they probably have office staff, they probably have, yard staff. So yes, it brings employees, but I don't know that it, I don't know that it fits in with what the employment center kind of describes through the comprehensive plan.
Do you have that text of what it's listed as well?
I don't have it. It says, employment center is office park or corporate campus type development geared toward meeting the needs of mid to large single format users. Development should include signature architecture design to complement the rural character of the community and utilize a campus style pattern so as to capitalize on amenities and provide organized sites that are not isolated from each other. Parking should incorporate green infrastructure principles, and it's got some characteristics about the development.
Yeah, I would concede that you're probably right there.
And then I don't know that you can see that picture, but I mean, and obviously these are just renderings. It's not anything that is, etched in stone. We use it as a guiding light. That's it, and we try to adhere to it the best that we can. So obviously, you're saying roughly 25 trucks that come in and out of this on or you're going to have 25 drivers. They obviously have multiple jobs per day. I mean, they're not coming in once and going back and being done.
Right.
Any idea in terms of the number of trips each one of these trucks would make in during the course of a day? Are we looking at 3 trips per truck in? Are we looking at 10 trips in? Obviously, I know it depends on the location of the job that they're going to, the distance they have to travel and stuff, but like on an average, are we looking at 3 or 10 per truck so we know how many trips? And then to go with that, how many trips are we bringing in? Because you got to bring the material in to actually make and mix the concrete. So you're going to have large trucks that are coming in and dumping the material in order for them to have something to mix. And I'm curious about the number of trips that come in and out. I'm concerned about the number of large, heavy trucks that come into that area. We already have obviously a lot of semi-truck traffic that uses 42.
Yep.
And adding that right there. I also have, these are just all off the top of my head, concerns or questions maybe about, the frontage of 42. That this is obviously a highly traveled area. It's kind of the gateway from the north into town, and that's the first thing that we're going to see as we come into town. So I have some concerns about the appearance, and I picture this type of there's another concrete company in town or close to town, just outside of town, and it's back in the quarry. You can't see, you don't even know it's there. Most people probably don't even know it's there. I think Ohio Ready Mix, your guys are in Kyleville now, and you're kind of back behind what the old grain elevator was. So it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, and that's kind of how I view this type of a project. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, out of sight, out of mind.
Well, I could say one reason they were looking to this space because their main headquarters are in Huntsville, Ohio, and basically you go up there, you can buy your gravel, you can buy your concrete, you can buy your lumber, you can buy your brick, and they're seeing sort of the same type of, and we're going to put that in our text, type of set up here where, you know, people can come, there's a lot of growth and stuff going on here. People, you know, want to buy stuff to do their house on a weekend, patios, decks, etc. And that's the place to go. And I think that'd be a good thing because it's going to keep the sales tax money in our county. Rather than everybody going to the sawmill or wherever, you know, money goes elsewhere. So we'll bring you some renderings of what this is going to look like. Believe me, this is not going to look like your
Sure, yeah.
state of the art. But I appreciate your comments. I just wanted this is why they're attracted to this piece, and that's why they wanted the 42 frontage, because they're going to be selling to not just contractors but to homeowners.
So you're saying that they're basically gonna have, flat storage, I don't know, you're gonna basically have, cubbies for different types of gravel that somebody's gonna come in and buy. You're gonna load it up with, say, a Bobcat, put it in their truck?
Gravel is probably going to be one of the things they're going to sell here.
Okay, what would a typical homeowner come into?
Brick, probably some lumber.
So, and when you say brick, are you talking like paver patio bricks?
It could be, we'll get you a list.
So there'll be a retail component to this
Yes.
piece.
So will this be I'm assuming some outdoor storage then for all those materials?
Probably, but I don't think, they're not big on outdoor storage, this company, as you can see. They store all their equipment inside there, so.
Well, and the reason I ask, I mean, with what we looked through, you know, there was the building that you had mentioned, but I didn't notice anything else notating that there might be another building on the property.
Yes, and we're gonna have that in the next drawing and in our tax.
Ms. Brill, could you flip back to the layout as well?
As she's going back, you've mentioned a couple of times, and I don't mean this sarcastically, but you've mentioned state of the art several different times as it relates to a concrete plant where there's concrete trucks going out. A process that's been used for, you know, decades. What makes the facility state of the art?
One is paving all the surface the trucks run on is not something very typical at all in any concrete plant. That helps reduce dust. The settlement pond for the washout, almost, I'd say 90% of the concrete plants I know of, the trucks just come in and wash out right on the dirt. We are taking care of that washout, making sure that the polluted stormwater doesn't get into the storm system. And then the way they wash the trucks right after they get out of the batch plant, make sure that there's no dust and no debris gets onto the street. So, you know, so it's not like high-tech state of the art, but it's state of the art.
No, that's fine. I don't know the operation of a concrete
So
plant
how we're
anyway.
gonna handle things, that's pretty cutting edge. And of course, the plant will be brand new, so the plant will be state of the art, which again will have a lot of components in it to not make dust. Dust is the main thing that you see around a lot of concrete plants, and this one would be pretty much dust free.
What is the tallest structure?
It'll be that the concrete plant will be 80 feet tall.
80.
And then we have, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna ask, if you kind of go back to the aerial for a second, where, I know some developments are coming onto, yeah, please, thank you. In that area across from the park, where
Right
are
at the
some of the
bottom.
adjacent parcels to this particular parcel? What are they zoned? Are they still, when do we get into residential, I guess?
So this parcel right here was rezoned as a planned unit development for 100 single-family homes we developed here. These right now are zone B2. This is zone industrial.
Industrial.
This is zone commercially right here. This is our park. And then residential uses are back.
Okay. You know, my concern was really just understanding where these homes are coming with an operation like a concrete batch plant close to, you know, what kind of noise, what kind of dust, what kind of operation we're looking at. in these people's homes, so I just.
That was my question too, to go back to the aerial map, just to see like how close.
Yeah, and actually the residential part goes a little bit further than what the brown section is, right? It goes a little bit further north from the fence line, yeah. Doesn't it encroach into the green space just a little bit, or the green area on that map?
If it does,
I don't
it's
believe so, it's
minimally.
very, very minimally. There's another parcel that separates, the one in question tonight, and the other one is owned by a separate
Right.
owner. It's currently sits empty right
Mhm.
now. And that would provide a
Buffer,
buffer,
yeah.
if you will, between that new subdivision and then this parcel, whatever that would look like in the future.
And just for clarification, you said that across the street, across 42, yeah, just to the left there, is all in, yes, that area is industrial.
Correct, it's zoned I-1.
It's zoned industrial. Again, back to the comprehensive plan, it is an employment center, just like what we were just talking about. Would their project fit into in the industrial classification?
In our code currently.
Yes. So if they built across the street, they wouldn't have to go through a rezoning. It would be a proper use.
That's correct. I would have to verify whether it would be permitted or conditional use, but they would fit in an industrial district. The reason in which, we had discussed why not to rezone that parcel industrial, because when you rezone something, you are allowing for any of those other uses on that list to go in. So if the desire for that parcel was never to be an industrial use and you rezone it that way, if this business goes out or, the project, something happens with the project, that's now rezoned industrial, and then you open up the possibilities.
Mhm.
What can go there.
What are the adjacent parcels to the north and east there?
What's on them?
Yeah, what's that, self-storage, and what's that?
Self-storage, this is a home, it's outside of the corporation limits.
Got it.
But the self-storage is not, is it?
No,
It's not.
it's not
No,
in
it's
this
not in.
jurisdiction.
Now, our boundaries kind of cut off, right into there. Kind of jagged.
And also, just maybe a point of clarification, Taylor, obviously going through the zoning code rewrite, and there's gonna be some zoning modifications. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of different areas that currently have whatever zoning classification that are gonna change with that zoning code.
Yeah, in our zoning code rewrite, we're trying to calibrate it as closely as possible to the zoning districts in the comp plan, so it'll be very similar to what those uses are, we just are dialing them in. And I had mentioned previously that this might not be something that would be permitted, it doesn't mean that it could be something that's conditional, because it's kind of a unique circumstance.
Mhm.
And there are other factors I feel like you'd have to consider in terms of whether it can include there and some of the other operational standpoints from how the business works that may need to be further evaluated.
All right.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing is, we want to understand it more. We want to understand what you're proposing for that, what it's going to look like. I think Tom brought up a lot of good, valid points about that space as well. I think that'll be key and with what you bring before us and what we're going to consider.
We value this input tonight.
Did you guys have any other questions for us?
Yeah, it was great.
Thank you.
Sure, absolutely.
Thanks a lot.
And I have nothing else on the agenda. Anyone else have anything?
Nothing of this talking about the zoning code rewrite, and I know, Mr. Swink, you had raised some questions on like design standards and such. Do you think that would be a discussion topic if we meet again in December that you'd want to, or just wait until the zoning code, or?
Yeah, either way is fine. I think we should I mean, I'm not a part of the steering committee, so I don't obviously know what's going on there, but I would have some recommendations on some things that we could do, I think, for our neighborhoods.
Ms. Brill, when will planning commission see the zoning code?
I don't have an exact date because the holidays are kind of impacting when we can meet for steering committee, but it will probably be in 2022 or late in 2022.
Okay.
I imagine that process will kind of come after review of the second section, which we're doing at the beginning of December. We'll do code revision, and then my goal, depending on how everything works, is over the holidays, we get out that public draft, can get that out to you guys, and then hopefully the first meeting in January, we can have some sort of review here.
I will say in full transparency, with the way my job works, this time of the year is when I have the least amount of time. So I will probably not get a thorough review for the January meeting, even if we get it early December.
Okay.
I can come to that meeting with ideas,
Okay.
to incorporate or whatever, so.
Yeah, and if we want to chat, I'm happy to kind of send you along to some things that we've already drafted up
Okay.
to react to. That
Yeah.
would be helpful.
Sure.
To kind of work there, so we can do that as well.
That's all I had.
Perfect. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Adjourned.